Welcome to Marketing Made Simple TV. I'm Jeff Ogden, the host of the show, and we're thrilled to have you back once again. We've got another great guest. At the time we filmed this, it's officially Customer Service this week. And what better way to celebrate Customer Service Week than to bring in a top expert in customer service, Chip Bell. Let's welcome Chip to the show.
It's my honor to be with you.
Hey there, Chip.
Hey, what's happening, Jeff?
I gotta say, yeah, and I gotta get in the name of your book. It's 9.5 Rules of Innovative Service, right? Isn't that the official name?
9.5 principles.
Principle.
Innovative service.
Okay, yes, okay. First question, I'll ask you the same question I ask every guest on the show. It's a tradition of the show, Chip. It's very simple. Who are you and what do you do?
I'm Chip Bell, and I work with organizations all over the world, and my whole focus is how to create a culture that supports long-term customer loyalty.
Very cool. I like a man who can say what he does in a sparse number of words. So before we dive into your book, I got to ask you one question. Why 9.5? Why not 10? Why not 9? Why 9.5?
Well, it worked, Jeff. It got your attention. You ask about it, and that's the whole idea. Part of the innovative service is there's an element of surprise, there's an element of intrigue, and the fact that you noticed it is part of the design. If I'd have said 10 principles, 7 habits, whatever, it'd have been ho hum.
You're right, Chip, and it was a good, quick, fun read. I enjoyed the book a lot, so thank you. So tell me a little bit about the book. Tell me some of the ideas that are in the book.
Well, I think the key part is the fact that we all know value added is what we need to do to exceed customers' expectations and create loyalty and retention. But value add has got a lot expensive today, and so that whole concept of the baker's dozen is a lot more expensive than it's ever been. And while I may be generous as a service provider, I can't upgrade you to the fancy floor just because you're a frequent guest. I got to sell that room, or I can't upgrade you to first class. I got to sell that seat in first class. So I think the concept is, how do we then look at value unique? That is, how do we create a unique and unusual, surprising, unexpected surprise that's not pricey? That's what the book's all about.
So, Chip, that's interesting. Can you share an example of surprise, of how it actually works?
Sure. My wife has a new car. She traded in her old car and got a new car. And a week after she had her new car, she turned on the radio for the very first time and discovered they had programmed in her radio stations from her trade-in. Now, what do you think she talks about? The car or the radio? It's that radio. And Lord, I think what she paid for that car.
That's a good example because stuff like that doesn't really cost anything other than just a little bit of time and care. So give us some of the other key concepts from the book, Chip.
Well, it starts, first of all, with the fact that we don't get very much unexpected surprise. And I have an illustration. We can throw up the first slide as an illustration of the kind of experience you're trying to create for your customer. Now, that's a good slide. We just need to look at that the rest of the time. But let's go on to the next slide. And in some ways, it's about creating the experience that we might get at a great magic show. You know, when we watch magic, we think for a moment we've witnessed a miracle. We know it's not a miracle, but it feels that way. It's sort of that wow, that unexpected. How'd they do that? Well, let me give you an example with our own magic trick. So let's take a look at the next slide. And what the slide asks you to do is to select one card and remember the one you chose. So everybody pick one card. Now we can move to the next slide. Now what I'm going to do is magically remove the card you selected. So let's take a look at the next one. So how'd I do? Now if you've never seen that trick, you sort of go, wow, either everybody picks the same card or he's really a good magician. Now, I'm not a real magician, so I'm going to tell you how the trick works. all the cards on that last slide were not on the first slide, so it doesn't matter what you picked. Your card got removed. So that's the essence, is how do we create this element of surprise? And we've created 9.5 principles to give people lots of options about a strategy for how to delight that customer with the unexpected experience.
So yes, that was a great trick, and I enjoyed it, Chip. And it's very funny how you can surprise people like that. But you talk about doing the unexpected, and that's got to be a challenge for people to come up with creative ways to do the unexpected. So just tell us some of more. What are some of the more ideas that come out of your book of really developing this great customer service without spending a lot of money?
Well, one of the tricks is what I call the Cracker Jack principle. And you remember Cracker Jacks. We love Cracker Jacks, not because it had a cool box, which it did, or because it had really good caramelized popcorn. It was that prize inside. And that prize was probably worth less than a penny. But the emotional connection was a great one. And that is one of the principles is the Cracker Jack principle, and how do I find the little unique and unusual ways to surprise? And I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, I was at the Park Inn in Mechanicsburg, Pennsylvania, and I had breakfast, and I finished my breakfast, and instead of bringing me just the check, the waitress, Sandy, brought me a to-go cup with coffee just the way I fixed it. I like to fix it. Now, how much does that cost? Hardly nothing, but I couldn't believe it. I said, Sandy, you have no idea how much I needed that coffee today. That's one example. Another one might be, how do you find a way to, I call it purpling. It's how do you add a sense of elegance, a sense of upgrading the experience at a more regal level. And there's simple ways to do that. I'll give you a quick story. I stepped out of the airport in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was waiting for my taxi. The next taxi pulled up. I noticed was kind of an old taxi, but shiny, clean. The guy jumped out and grabbed my bag, shook my hand. That was first. And then he, like a chauffeur might, then he raised up the hood to put my luggage in, and I noticed he had lined the inside of his trunk with fake mink. It looked real, but it was like faux mink. I thought, man, this is going to be different. He ran around, opened the cab door for me to get in. When I got in, there was cold water in the cup holder. There were magazines that you'd expect at a fancy hotel. The Robb Report, Town and Country, Wine Spectator. And the music he was playing was classical music. Now, I happen to like classical music, but it elevated that whole thing to a much higher level. I got purple, like I was suddenly somebody who was regal. And his language even. I mean, here was an individual who was not obviously educated, but it was always certainly in my pleasure, like you'd expect at a Ritz-Carlton. Again, didn't cost him very much, but it made a gigantic impression on me.
That's a great story, Chip, of purpling, of how to give a Ritz-Carlton type experience in whatever you do. And that's a great idea. So share some of the other concepts that came out of your book and some of these really interesting principles that you came up with to deliver great customer service.
Well, another principle that I talk about in the book is, I call it the 24 mile per hour principle. It all came when my wife and I were at a resort for like a vacation, and we noticed that all the signs said speed limit 24. Well, I'll tell you, we didn't miss any of those signs. If they'd said 25 or 30 or 20, we might have missed it. But the fact that they look for ways to stimulate the senses, and the whole principle is around what you might think of as 4D. You know, my wife and I bought a 3D TV for our grandkids to watch Toy Story and, Brave and Hugo. They love trying to catch those images that came out in the living room with their glasses. But then they went to Disney and they got to see 4D. where not only they got all the three-dimensional imagery coming out, but the seats moved and they got misted with water and the wind blew. So all of a sudden our 3D TV didn't look that great anymore. The point is that customers today are overstimulated and over-entertained in many ways. And so looking for ways to create that kind of special, unique way to stimulate their senses. You know, there was a brokerage firm a number of years ago that decided to have fun with their phone system. You know, the one where you punch 2 if you want this, punch 3 if you want this. They decided to add punch 8 if you want to hear a duck quack. Over 1 million people call just to hear the dang duck every week. In fact, it was overwhelming their system and costing them a fortune. They had to finally take it out. It sort of tells me that customers today are bored. Apparently, for some of them, it doesn't take much to entertain them. But the whole idea is, how can I stimulate the senses? If you've flown on Delta Airlines lately, you know that people usually aren't watching the safety video, but now they have made it so unusual and unique, nobody misses that video on Delta Airlines. And so they've had a lot of fun with it, hiding little pictures, taking it to the extreme, all the things that stimulate our senses in ways that make the experience memorable, stand out.
Great stories, Chip. I mean, if I had to distill it down to a lesson, it's just relax and have fun. I mean, that's what it seems. Great customer service seems about more than anything else. So you've got so many great principles in your book. Share another one with us, Chip. This is fun.
Oh, good. Well, I'll give you another example. One of the strategies we talk about is basically the mentoring strategy. It's how you can look for ways to educate your customer in unique and unusual ways. And I'll give you an example. We were working with a large company in the agricultural space. This is a huge company headquartered in St. Louis that makes products, corn, wheat that people grow, plus products that help these large growers fertilize and help grow the healthy crops. And their customers, these are customers that have several 100,000 acres, Kansas and Iowa. They went usually to their customer care center for training and update. And they said, you know, you need to help us stay up on the cutting edge of how we can stay up to date on the latest thinking in our business, in the agricultural space. So they asked us to help them figure out, how do you do that? How can we do that? How can we hardwire learning into the experience? How can we build it into our DNA? Well, we said, have you thought about the bathroom? They go, the bathroom? Yeah. What if you look for ways to make the bathroom a source of learning? So what they did is, over the urinals in the men's restroom and then on the back of the door in the ladies' restroom, every day they put up the Stall Street Journal. Changed every day, like the Wall Street Journal, and it's got contained in it the thought for the day, a little information about a new product, a tip someone recommended you might try, you know, a variety of things, but it's signal to their customers, we care about your learning and we care about ways to keep you up to date in your industry.
I like that, Chip. The Stall Street Journal, pretty cute. And one thing I got to say, I've always admired Google, because if you just go to google.com, they'll have some cute animation, something there every single day, and they change it every day. So what I would ask marketers is, what have you changed today? Why can't you change every day? So give us a little bit more from your great book.
Oh, good. Well, I'm like you. I'm a big fan of Google, and part of the Google lesson is the fact that they reward that innovation. You may not know this, but every employee at Google gets to spend 20% of their work time working on a project that they're keenly interested in that may have a business application. 20% of their time. But what they found is over 50% of their breakthroughs and innovations come from that 20%. So part of it is I need to find ways to celebrate that uniqueness, celebrate that way of that innovation and thinking out of the box. And so that's part of the lesson the book is designed to bring. One of my points is that more and more we need to empower our frontline, give them the authority, the training, the capacity, the resources to deliver that innovative service. But in the event you're working with an organization that may not have the kind of empowerment that you want, this book is designed to give you that little extra and a new
Chip,
way
this has been
of thinking
great, and
about
I've really enjoyed talking about your book. And I wish I could spend a lot more time talking about it, but we're running short on time. So what I would just ask you is, I'm sure a lot of our viewers would love to pick up your book. Where do they find it, and where can they learn more about you?
Well, thanks for that, Jeff. And it's been an honor to share this time with you, talk about a subject near and dear to my heart. If you want to order the book, the easiest and the least expensive way to get it is to log on simpletruths.com. Simpletruths.com. They are the producer of the book. There, we got it up on the screen now. Simpletruths.com. If you want to learn a little bit more about my business and practice, go to chipbell.com. That's a website name I can remember.
I want to thank Chip Bell for being a great guest on the show. As he said, go to simpletruths.com to get his book, and go to chipbell.com to learn more about him and the services that he does. Before we go, we want to thank our sponsors, because our sponsors make the show possible. We always want to thank them. Avatage is a great content marketing company in Boston. Go to avatage.com. Digital Ethos is a nonprofit education, really replaced by Social Media Club Long Island. Communication Strategy Group, brand telling, great company, communicationstrategygroup.com. And Watchitoo provides this wonderful platform we use for our TV on the web show. So we thank Watchitoo as well, watchitoo.com. Marketing Made Simple TV premieres every Thursday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. So until next week, we'll see you next time on Marketing Made Simple TV.